We hope you'll join us next Saturday night at 11:30. Until then, I'm Stu Seibel, hoping you have a good night and a good week ahead.
Welcome once again to a basic understanding of the Cthulhu Mythos, an intro to the Cthulhu Mythos, if you will. I am your host, D.B. Spitzer, and I will be here to talk to you about everything from Azathoth to Zoth-O-Mog. So, thank you for joining us once again for our yearly Understanding the Cthulhu Mythos. This year it is just I speaking, and first, please hold your questions until the very end. Thank you. Welcome once again, everyone, to an introduction to the Cthulhu Mythos. I am your host, D.B. Spitzer, where we will be talking about the greater points of the Cthulhu Mythos. This is just an introduction class. We will not be going into the children of Sithagwa. We will not be speaking about various deities of Clark Ashton Smith. And, you know, there's just so much to cover within the Cthulhu Mythos. Just in an introduction, we will not be covering all monsters and creepies that are represented within the Cthulhu Mythos. So let us carry on. As I said, I am D.B. Spitzer, host of People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos, a show I host weekly with my friend David Heath. David, unfortunately, is on another panel right now recording, so he cannot be a part of my panel. Everyone else is busy right now, so I am doing a solo panel. Thank you for your patience. I hope you enjoyed the tape that I found. All right, so first things first. Let's start at the beginning. We all know that H.P. Lovecraft, the American author who was born in 1890 and died in 1937, created the shared universe known as the Cthulhu Mythos. That phrase was coined by Arkham House producer, publisher, and sweater wearer August Derleth. So that's what we're going to talk about right now, the Cthulhu Mythos. First, we will be starting with Azathoth and the Outer Gods. What is first done with the Cthulhu Mythos is, first you must have the Overgod, and that Overgod in the Cthulhu Mythos is Azathoth. Azathoth is served by, Azathoth is a blind idiot god and must be served by its minions, which are other outer gods that are blind idiots, not as much as it is, and just are reality-shaping things like a god of space, or a god of time, or a god of fertility, or a god of structure, or a god of, not a god of decay. I don't quite understand how Hastur is the god of decay, but it's a great old one. But this is the introduction to the Cthulhu Mythos. So, Cthulhu Mythos 101, we keep moving on. Examples of outer gods are like Kazak-Klu-Kalath, who is, I believe, Sithagwa's great-grandfather and one of the first children of Azathoth. We also have Daoloth, who you should not look at, and creatures like Shub-Nagurith, the dark goat in the woods with 1,000 young. Those 1,000 young, who are they? Well, we'll cover that in Cthulhu Mythos 105. And currently, it's a pottery class. And currently, we also have Nyarlathotep and Yog-Sothoth. Nyarlathotep is a messenger of Azathoth. Maybe the will of Azathoth, possibly. But we don't know exactly who Nyarlathotep is because of the fact that Nyarlathotep has had so many faces, so many cultures, possibly beyond Earth as we know it and understand it. And yes, Nyarlathotep, the messenger of Azathoth. Yog-Sothoth is a particularly interesting outer god. Yog-Sothoth here is several spheres, multitude of spheres, and is not only the gate, but the key, And if in some way you can talk to Azathoth and get it to pay too much attention to you, you can impregnate someone who then has a terrible being born of them that is part Yog-Sothoth and isn't quite solid. Madness ensues. And that is a quick summary of the outer gods. We also have the elder gods, where we have Bast and Nodens. Bast, of course, is an Egyptian cat goddess, and Nodens is a bearded guy who cruises around on shells. Both are considered to be, quote-unquote, the good guys within the Cthulhu Mythos, as they are not necessarily antagonists. They're also part of the group that is, I don't know, supposedly responsible for imprisoning the great old ones. So, they're the gods of Earth, but not the gods of the Dreamlands. That's a different group altogether. Although the gods of the Dreamlands and the gods of Earth and the old outer gods switch places, and depends on who's writing what. But these so far, outer gods, elder gods, yes, this is pretty standard stuff for the Cthulhu Mythos. Next we get into one of the favorite of everyone's, the Great Old Ones. If Azathoth is the biggest, baddest thing on the block, and the outer gods and the elder gods are big bad things too, but not as big as Azathoth, the Great Old Ones they're dogs and cats, or I don't know, things they've created to make their life easier. And these are such creatures as Shana-Fan, Cthulhu, Cthulhu, Dagon, Ihort, Haster, Nug and Yeb, Negotha, Narlethotep again, Quachil, Utas, Rantigoth, Sathagwa, and Yig. That is not a complete list by any stretch of the imagination. These are just ones that are from particularly of the great old ones when it comes to writing, as Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, and many more who we'll get into in a moment. So, we have creatures like Shana-Fan and Cthulhu and Cthulhu. These are all creatures that live in different places, have different things, all totally different about them. Shana-Fan looks kind of like an elephant with crystalline trunks, but isn't an elephant. Cthulhu is fire incarnate, and Cthulhu is a squid monster that sleeps underwater, waiting for a day to rise up and something. Dagon serves Cthulhu. Ihort lives in England, and Hasta lives in the red eye of Taurus. Nugget Yeb, they're always doing something. Negotha, is Negotha even alive anymore? Narlethotep, well, that's a bit more. You have Quatil Utas, who is the treader of dust. So, yes. For Rantigoth hangs out in museums, Sathagwa hangs out in caves, and Yig is a snake god. This is the most basic rundown I could give you. Check out the books that these come from. Look up the names. Find the great old ones that you like, and spend far too much time and money on them in the future when you can be like, well, I got another Shana-Fan figurine for my Shana-Fan collection. I even got some fake crystalline tusks that set me about back 5 big ones. No, do what you want with what you want. It's you. But the great old ones, they've been around forever. Some are enslaved, some are just napping, some are just too far away, some don't want to be anywhere, some just want to stay hidden, and some are long dead. Death may die, but something that's old sometimes. It'll die. And it'll come back later, but that's the prerogative of the great old ones. Everything else, free to be you and me, the Bayaki, the deep ones, the elder things. Ghouls, gugs, humans, Migo, moonbeasts, nightgons, serpents, shoggoths. I contemplated doing a pokey rap with this, but I chose not to. This is everything else. These are the Servitor Beasts. These are the independent ones who showed up on planet Earth long before anything else walked it. This is things like Yithians, which are not on my list. A race that can project their minds through time and space to kill a whole race, to provide that they live. You've got the Bayaki, hybrid animals that act like space vehicles, so that you can swim through the deep darkness of space. Deep ones, genetic creatures that, genetically slippery creatures that live underwater and mate with sentient beings and wait for a day to rise up and take over the land. Elder things, scientists from a bygone age, one of the first races to inhabit the earth. Actually, they were. Then Yithians showed up and they fought. And ghouls, the cast off of the jinn and some such stuff. Gugs. They've got mouths that open wrong and 2 arms at the elbow, and they're gigantic and hairy. Nightgons don't have faces. Serpent people, that's pretty self-explanatory. Shoggoths. I cannot explain a Shoggoth to you. You have to read At the Mountains of Madness. Yes, the person next to you who has disagreed with me on other things, they are nodding that are going, yes, you should read At the Mountains of Madness. Man, the announcer on this has an annoying voice. Is he going to talk like this the whole time? And then he continued to talk like this the whole time. But everything else, humanoids, everything that we think of as life is the reject bits and pieces of Shoggoths being created. Many of these things come from dark within our own universe, way far off in distant spots. And of course, let's not forget about our good friends, the Migo, who are from a place so far away they don't remember. Moon beasts who live in space, but not our space, not our moon, the moon of the dreamlands, which cats can jump up to. Yes, even cats are part of the Cthulhu Mythos, and that's pretty cool. Places of note. Providence, Rhode Island was the home of H.P. Lovecraft, and several stories take place there. Stories about that start off in a Revolutionary era Providence, Rhode Island, or stories that end in a modern era Providence, Rhode Island, but not very kindly. There is, of course, Arkham, Massachusetts, the home of Miskatonic University, where many a Lovecraftian protagonist begins their journey or says they're from or passes through. Boston, Massachusetts. Despite what you've heard from the sitcom Cheers, Boston is a real place, and it is in Massachusetts. Dunwich, or Dunwich, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're from. Dunwich, Massachusetts is a town suffering from hard times in the days of Lovecraft, a place where the hills run wild and the locals are known to do the same. Insport, Mass, a coastal town. I wouldn't go there if I was you. I'd shun it. Kingsport, Massachusetts, why, there's a house on a high hill I'd also shun, a terrible old man that I'd shun, but why, the beach is lovely this time of year. Ralye. Well, that's where Cthulhu dreams, and if you're a sailor, I'd watch out for it. Antarctica is a place that, if also you are an explorer, that's not a place to go explore it alone for any time longer. And wow, my accent has shifted again. Lang is a plateau that I would definitely say avoid Lang. It's a plateau not necessarily fixed in time and place. It might be part of the dreamlands, or it might be something of a weirder nature, something that's off in between places that we know and do not know. That is just the nature of the plateau in Lang. And one place even stranger mentioned in the Call of Cthulhu, Rhode Island School of Design, RISD. Writers of note in the Cthulhu Mythos, and ones that people go goo goo gaga for. This is not a complete one, but this is ones that if you were forced to write, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 quickly off the top of your heads, you would say Clark Ashton Smith, Robert E. Howard, Frank Belknap Long, Robert Bloch, Henry Kuttner, and Zelia Bishop. Let's not forget the old gentleman himself, Howard Phillips Lovecraft. These were people who worked together. They worked together in the pulp magazines and the science fiction magazines, and they wrote together and wrote for each other and corresponded thousands upon thousands of letters between all of them. And H.P. Lovecraft, before the internet, he didn't have it. He wrote a lot. He sat inside and he wrote. He didn't play video games. He wrote letters. When was the last time you wrote a letter? If you wish to find out more about the periodicals in which they wrote for, I would start with Weird Tales and work from there. Get an idea of the pulps and see if the pulps are for you. Other writers of note Lynn Carter. Other writers of note, in no particular order and by no means complete: Lynn Carter, Ambrose Bierce, Robert W. Chambers, Fritz Leiber, Ramsey Campbell, Brian Lumley, T.E.D. Klein, Stephen King, Thomas Ligotti, Poppy Z. Bright, W.H. Pugmire, Laird Barham, Joseph S. Pulver, Cody Goodfellow, Scott R. Jones, Molly Tanza, and many more. One person I did not bring up was August Derleth, and it is not by omission. August Derleth is not brought up because of the fact that August Derleth is the one who coined the phrase Cthulhu Mythos. Without August Derleth, despite how you feel about August Derleth's posthumous work with H.P. Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft being dead in this situation, is not always looked at kindly. But if it wasn't for Derleth, we would not have any of this, and wouldn't that have been a shame? If you have any questions, I will start to examples. Well, Lynn Carter wrote a lot of things that kind of pertain to the stuff that Clark Ashton Smith wrote about, like actually kind of filled in the gaps of what was going on in ancient Hyperborea. Ambrose Bierce actually didn't write anything for the Cthulhu Mythos, was pre-Cthulhu Mythos, and Lovecraft just kind of ripped off some of his ideas, not ripped off, made mention of some of his deities or stranger ideas. Robert W. Chambers wrote about the King in Yellow, but not as a Lovecraftian entity. Fritz Leiber. Why are you asking me about Fritz Leiber? You should know who Fritz Leiber is. Ramsey Campbell, one of the greatest British writers of all time, one of the greatest mythos writers of all time, one of the greatest horror writers of all time, and a good guy. Brian Lumley, I once high-fived him. Stephen King, ever hear of the guy? Seriously, everyone else on this list, if you don't know about them, you should meet them. If you unfortunately can't meet them anymore due to them passing, you should buy their books, the books they've edited, and so forth. I don't know what else. Let's see. Okay, you there. Yes. No, the Necronomicon is not real. Oh, items of the Cthulhu Mythos. Yes. There's. The Migos use brain cylinders in which to keep brains in, so that they could supposedly transport them around the universe, but that may just have been some Migo trickery. They may just dump brains out. Who knows? That may have just been a dead brain in a jar, and that was Migos messing with people. That's what I like to think. Yes. Other books other than the Necronomicon worth mentioning. There's Cult of Ghouls. I believe that is a Robert E. Howard invention. There's other ones. Yes. No. That book, that's a good book too. That's also a good book. Okay. All right. You don't want to do this anymore. The pretending to answer questions isn't great. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much for listening. If you have any questions, you can email me at pgttcm@gmail.com, or go to pgttcm, that's P as in people, G as in Goofus, T as in Toit, T as in Toiga, C as in Camaro, and M as in Monster Mash. So, yes, please. People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. You can find t-shirts, skateboards, your new favorite wine glass, all kinds of great stuff. So check us out, and thank you for coming to this year's Cthulhu Mythos 101, hosted by me, DB Spitzer. Thank you again.